Hello, I'm Doreen Ellen Bell Dotan and Svat. Now that heaven and hell are both firmly established right here on good old earth, we can begin to speak about just what heaven and hell are in terms that the very real events will give their reinforcement to. So long as heaven and hell were in the spiritual realm, that is to say that that which is written in Torah had not been translated properly and definitively. In reality, on earth, these ideas were abstract and remote and kind of up for grabs. Now that we see that heaven and hell are very real right here, we can speak far more realistically about what this means. It should be clear by now that live and dead are not, it's not a binary, it's not one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive. In fact, and I've said in videos before, and now it becomes extremely important to understand this deeply, there are no abstract concepts. That is to say, life is not an abstract concept. Life is those who are alive. Similarly, death is not an abstract concept. Death is those who are dead. Again, they're not separate, one or the other functions or states or experiences. Ideally, one is both live and dead in a body, and that is an eternal state here on earth, not in a spiritual realm. Again, as I said very briefly in my last video, the Hebrew word for that has been translated as heaven is Shamayim, which is equal to 950. I have a number of substitution values for 950 under my last video, two of which are Shamayim, which is translated as heaven. Another is Sfarim, which is both books and frontiers. The whole idea being that we have to translate that which is written in our holy books into holy reality, into actual holy frontiers. Yeah? So we have a book in Torah called Sefer Malachim, which is usually translated as the Book of Kings. It can actually also be read as Sfar Malachim, which would then become the frontier of kings. And that is what we have to be able to enter in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. We have to be able to read what's in that book correctly about the kingdom in order to be able to be fit to stand in the presence of the holy monarchs of Israel. Um, Life and death are not what size fits all, one experience for everybody, standard faucet size things, plug and play. They are tailored to who we are as individuals, and the cultural context in which we find ourselves. Some experiences of life and death are common, of course, to all. Some experiences of death are common to all, but then there are very particular kinds of experiences. On my last video, someone made a very important comment. They said, what's written in the Tibetan Book of the Dead is different than what you're saying. Right. Because the experience of death for Buddhist monks is not the experience of death for Jews. In both cases, you have a concept of bliss, but the nirvana is not the Jewish yeshiva shel ma'ala, which is the highest level of learning Torah. It's the highest yeshiva. It's the highest academic level. In fact, you've heard no doubt the expression Adam Kadmon. In Kadmon, you should hear Akdamon, the academy. The high yeshiva is the yeshiva at which Adam Kadmon is the schoolmaster. That is why Adam Kadmon is called Adam Kadmon. I've said in other videos that Chava's name is equal to 19, which is Hoge or Hoga, which is to learn intensively, to learn meditatively. And Lilith's name is equal to 480, which is Talmud, which is learning. It is Lomedit, she is learning. And Moledit, which is one's land. One might translate it as motherland, fatherland. So when we speak about Adam Kadmon, we are speaking about being fully grounded in the ground of being, and for Jews that means being in the highest academy of Torah learning. Yes. For other peoples, the experience of death then is different, because not everybody wants to spend eternity sitting with Yeshayahu Hanavi, the prophet Isaiah, and Eliyahu Hanavi, the prophet Elijah, and Micha and Amos and Huldah and Devorah, and learning from them in absolute rapture, every word that comes out of their mouth, and you just float in absolute bliss. That is not everybody's idea of heaven, and it need not be so. Just as in life Hashem gives us what we need tailored to our needs, so in death God gives us what we need tailored to our needs. So the idea of final bliss for a Tibetan monk is not the same idea exactly as that of same experience as that of an Iroquois, someone from the Tusi tribe, the Inuit each have their own idea, vision of what the perfection that they want to live in eternity is, and for them the realization of that is heaven on earth. The Christians cannot and will not have an experience of heaven. Those who did good deeds in their life will be rewarded for the good deeds that they did, despite the fact that they are Christians. But they will not be rewarded as Christians, and they will not get into heaven as Christians. For the following reasons. I have already explained what Jewish heaven is. Jewish heaven is spending eternity listening to Adam Kadmon teaching Torah to all of the subsequent generations, and the unfolding of understanding in each generation, and sharing that one with the other, such that one is learning from not only the generations before one was born as a Jew, but also, and maybe even more blissfully, the subsequent generations, to be learning from our students. So we're learning from our teachers, our progenitors, our mothers and our fathers, and we are learning from the subsequent generations, our children and our students. Having tried to arrogate the Torah of the Jews, the Christians are no longer privy to the heaven that was meant for them in pre-Christian times. They forfeited that. But now they are no longer, they're not, never were, they're not able in any way, shape, or form to have the Jewish concept of heaven, which, by the way, is also Yeshua ben Miriam's concept of heaven. His concept of heaven is that of any other Orthodox Jew. He doesn't have a Christian idea of heaven. He has a Jewish idea of heaven. And frankly, he doesn't want Christians in our heaven any more than any other Orthodox Jew. He already made it very, very clear that his attitude toward the Christians was putting pearls before swine. He was talking about Torah wisdom. He let you know what he thought about you and about your ability to be able to understand the pearls of Torah wisdom. What makes you think now that he wants to share that with you? What, did he also change his mind in the last 2,000 years? Oh, they were swine then, but they're not swine anymore. He doesn't respect you. He doesn't like you. And he also doesn't appreciate your abuse of him and all of the other things that you have done collectively as Christians. I think it's fair to say that we Jews are and remain far closer to our cousin than you were to your idol, and that we have a much better grasp of what it was that he was trying to impart, which parts of it were true, which parts of it need a little bit of tweaking, which parts of it were incorrect, than you do, having no background in Jewish teaching whatsoever and learning it in translation. Even the Jewish Christians who learn this are learning Christian ideas in Hebrew, which is not getting them any closer to the truth. And you will see that what I'm saying is true. I don't want you to believe me. You will see that what I am saying is true. Not only is Yeshua ben Miriam not coming to rapture you, he is thoroughly disgusted with you, more than the average Orthodox Jew, and wants no truck with you Christians whatsoever. Don't believe me. Just watch. Now that you've entered hell on earth, you have all the time that you need to let the horror of what you've actually done and what you've actually reaped from what you'd sowed settle in. Take your time. You've got a lot of time. And so for all of these reasons, Christians have no access to heaven. If somebody were to break into my house, I probably would, although I wouldn't like it, I would understand that that person was desperate. And I don't know that I would trust the person to come into my house, but I would certainly understand that they need a house. However, if somebody were to break into my house and not only try to dispossess me of it, but to claim that the house is and always was theirs, and to then go about dispossessing those to whom I intended to will the house, I would have no compassion on that person whatsoever, because that would not be an act of desperation. That would be an act of wanton cruelty. And this is precisely how the righteous kings and queens and our holy prophets and our holy judges view the Christians. It is fully understood and recognized and agreed upon, and Yeshua ben Miriam is wholly in agreement with what I am about to say to you. Don't believe me, just watch how your worlds unfold. We are all of the opinion that having tried not only to break into the palace that is intended for the children of Israel, but also claiming that that palace has always been yours, and attempting to dispossess our children of it, those to whom the righteous Jews in all of the generations intended to will that house. You have no place in this house whatsoever, and there is no one in Israel who has any compassion for you when it comes to getting into heaven, which is this house. You forfeited your chance to ever find refuge under this roof. This is the judgment of all of Israel, all of the kings, all of the queens, all of the prophets, all of the judges, and all of the righteous in every single generation, with God's blessing. You Christians lost every chance you ever had to enter the kingdom of God. Others who are astray can become B'nai Noach. They can, they don't have to become Jews. They will inherit their heaven. You Christians, so long as you are Christians, do not have the heaven that was once intended for you, and you are viewed with utter and complete disgust in the house of David. If you sincerely, not out of fear, but out of sincere regret, begin to change your ways, that will be taken into account. You will be tried, you will be tested, you will have a long and hard and painful road to rebuild your worth in Israel's eyes. It's not impossible. It can be done. It won't be easy, and you will be tried. But so long as you're a Christian, you have no hope of ever getting into the kingdom of heaven. Thank you for listening.